Hi, welcome to Planetary Calendars, Astro Portraits. I am Ralph Dimichis, one of the calendar's astrologers, along with Lonnie Dimichis. You can find our portraits every Tuesday at Planetary Calendar Astrology on YouTube, and you can find our forecast for the coming week based upon the planetary calendar on Fridays. So let's get started with Chris Hemsworth. Well, in some ways, a quintessential Leo, you would think. I mean, after all, he seems bigger than life, even though the only thing he has in Leo appears to be the sun, although it could be the rising as well, but I really don't think so. We don't have a time. He was born August 11th, 1983, in Melbourne, Australia. Now, it's a Thursday, by the way, and his life path is a 4. By the way, if you watch this, could you please ask your mom when you were born and send it to us? We'd really appreciate it. Thank you. He's born with the sun, like I said, at 17 degrees Leo. He's born with the moon at 20 degrees, probably someplace around there, Virgo. Definitely a Virgo moon, because sometime in the course of that day, that moon was in Virgo. He also has Mercury and Venus in Virgo. And that's real interesting because you see the sun is in its most sunny spot. It's what's called the rulership position. It's where the sun is most extrovert. You know, it's the high summer time. The moon is not a strong moon at Virgo, and neither is the Venus. The Venus is actually what's called the fall position. It's the confidant position. But the Mercury is in rulership. It's the responsive, we call the feminine ruler or the responsive ruler. So it's extrovert, but it's responsive. This combination of these three is something you find a lot of times in actors. You find a lot of Virgo in actors. You know why? They're very precise in what they do, and they're really good at following directions. And they like working with a lot of fanfare, which is good because with the Leo sun, he could be quite dramatic. But like I said, it's the only thing he has in Leo. He has Mars in Cancer. So he would make a great home repair guy or do renovations. That's Mars in Cancer, thrives in that kind of stuff. It also means being probably a very nurturing father, very protective person. He's a person who's naturally protective of people around him, but he's not physically aggressive. It's late in the sign at 28 degrees Cancer. So it's close to Leo, but it's still a Cancer Mars. That's actually, it's the what's called the fall position. It's an internalized position. We got now Venus and Mars both in fall positions. Fall positions, just like the detriments, show an internal strength. Same way that the detriments are the internal expression of that planet. The fall is the eternal expression in the best friend area, like the confidant position. It's trustworthy. It understands the foibles of humans, of their friends. They say the expression, no man is a hero to his butler, because they see all of the places when he's not being heroic. And that's this quality. And you find that it's interesting. You find that oftentimes in very successful actors, they'll have some planets in rulership and some planets in detriment and fall because it means they have great dimension to their personality. Okay? He has Jupiter in Sagittarius. Now, he's born 1983. That Jupiter and Sagittarius generation is real interesting. He also has Uranus in Sagittarius within a few degrees, 1 degree to 5 degrees. The south node at 23 degrees Sagittarius, so it means there's a reincarnational connection there. Neptune at 26 degrees Aquarius. We think that he has Sagittarius rising. He comes across that way. He's got a great sense of humor. He's very expressive. He's very tall. He's very athletic. Is a quality you find with Sagittarius rising quite often. That kind of athleticism oftentimes will be found with Jupiter up in the 9th house, for instance, which would put Aries rising, but he doesn't strike me as an Aries rising person. Or it could come across with Mars rising, Mars at the first, close to the first house, but he doesn't come across as a Cancerian rising either. He's got very good cheekbones. He's unusual looking in kind of a very shiny way, and that kind of sparkle you see from people, you find a lot of times with Uranus at the rising. And also Uranus at the rising or at the midheaven conjunct the sun or the moon oftentimes catapults people to great fame because they just have sizzle. They have a lot of sizzle. So we're guessing Sagittarius rising, which would put him born someplace around noon, which would also make him someone who's very visible in the world. Okay? He has Saturn at 29 degrees Libra. It's the exalted position. At conjunct Pluto at 27 degrees, which has a global quality. Saturn in Libra likes to work in partnership. They like working in the arts. They're very drawn to the arts. They like careers in the arts, something like acting. The Pluto there adds a global quality to it. Remember, Pluto takes 240 years to go around the planet. It's got the long view. Pluto a lot of times has a global quality. So here you have the Sun in rulership, Saturn in exaltation. Okay, so these are defined roles. Jupiter in Sagittarius, a rulership position. Okay, so you got the Sun and Jupiter in rulership. This would be a person who'd tend to be successful no matter what he did. Conjunct Uranus, which adds sizzle to it. And then you have Venus and Mars in the fall positions. So you have this big polarity. There's a lot of depth to his personality, which is not something you get a sense of when you meet someone who has Sagittarius rising, or even a Leo. You don't get a sense that a Leo has a lot of depth because they're so bright on the outside. But he has that perfectionism that probably drives people around him a little bit crazy. Okay? I mean, on the other hand, he's probably so helpful between the Mars in Cancer and those three bodies in Virgo. He is probably the most helpful person to be around, though a little bit picky. Like, he's the person who will go over and like pick lint over, come up behind you and fix your collar without asking, because it just bothers him a little bit. It just bothers him a little bit. That's that Venus, Mercury, and the Moon in Virgo. Depending upon, like I said, when he was born, that's the major planets. If it is a Sagittarius rising, it puts most of the planets above the horizon, which would mean basically probably the Uranus and the Jupiter. They might be up in the Gogolon spot right above the horizon, which would add even more power to it. The midheaven would be in the 9th house at the Sun. In the 9th house, it means he would have a career in which he would travel a great deal, which he has done a huge amount of. He would also be someone who had an interest in health, interestingly. And he has a very strong interest in health, and that goes beyond even the Venus, Mercury, and Moon in Virgo, which would be obsessed with health anyway, at least their own. But he would have a strong interest in health and want to be a leader in it in some ways. And right currently, I think he's doing a series about health and looking at different aspects, because someone in his family, an ancestor, had Alzheimer's, and he's very concerned about this. Well, Alzheimer's grandparents are typically the asteroid Vesta. That's in his 7th house. In Gemini, mental acuity. Gemini is always about, the nervous system opposing these planets in Sagittarius. So that would be from the 1st house to the 7th house. So he would feel like that distancing, that connection. He'd feel a connection to his ancestor in that way. It also has Chiron, the planetoid that relates very strongly to health and self-healing, in the 7th house. So it's someone, once again, who would be very concerned with this. Having these in the 7th house and the North Node there as well, he probably would be drawn to marry someone who in some ways was a bit of a twin of his. Someone he could talk to easily. Also someone else who either had health challenges or had a very strong interest in health themselves, and who had a very strong sense of mission. Remember, wherever Vesta shows up, there's a strong sense of mission. It's interesting to see what will happen in his career in the coming year, because as we just talked about in the forecast, in 2023, the first half of the year, Jupiter's going into Aries. Well, the Jupiter in Aries is traveling real fast. It's going to set off both his Sun and his Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and South Node. It's going to set all of them off in the coming year. So it's going to very much energize his career. At the same time, that Uranus transiting through Taurus, which it's been doing for quite a while, has squared his Sun, but then it's going to eventually change Sun, and then it's going to be trining his Venus, Mercury, and the Moon in Virgo. It's interesting in that he does not. This chart has a lot of fire and air. You got the Sun, fire. Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune in fire, and then you have Saturn and Pluto in air. And then you have this little cluster of the Moon, Mercury, and Venus in Earth, which is funny because in some ways, it's the least earthy of the signs, because Virgo is about the human body. Like, our bodies come from the earth. Our composition, all is made out of the earth. There's no way getting around it. We get up on 2 feet and we move around, but we're still part of the earth. Okay, and we're connected to the earth and to nature and such. So his kind of connection to the earth is through his physical body. And he's very, very aware of that. So it's just a real interesting chart. Like I said, Chris, if you watch this, ask your mom your birth time and send it on over, okay? We'd really appreciate it. Come see us on Tuesdays for our portraits. Come see us on Fridays for our forecast. The forecast will be come out of the Planetary calendar. You can find your Planetary calendar at planetarycalendar.com. And of course, the YouTube channel is Planetary Calendar Astrology with Ralph and Lonnie. Until next time, be well.